This is part 2 in a series all about tiny living. Make sure to check out part 1 where we talk about designing your life for tiny living. Design here, then this advice we're going to give, big family homesteading. This part 2 is all about the challenges of tiny living. In this episode, you're going to hear us get very real about sleeping all in the same room. You didn't like everything, Val.
No, of course not.
Yeah. So what was your least favorite? We're going to talk about a family of 6 sharing one bathroom. Potty reveal. We're just having fun today. And we're going to get honest about how we felt about the experience all in all. That's the wrong question to ask me. I don't think I will miss
So what was
anything.
one of the...
Don't miss any of it. Definitely saw...
Homesteading doesn't really lend itself to tiny living. Mainly because of storage.
Yeah.
Even 100 years ago, 200 years ago, the farmers or the pioneers, they'd have their small house, big barn, right? Because you need to, especially where it's seasonally gets colder in the winter, you need hay storage, you need animal storage, feed storage, all that kind of thing. You want to stockpile food for the winter, so you want your canning, all your jars, hobby hunting, fishing, all the stuff that comes with that. It's difficult to find a room for all of those things in a tiny home.
The setup that we had here was really good because we were living in 1,000 square feet in this, what is now a studio space, up above a pole barn where we had lots of storage for the farm equipment, farm supplies. And if you're thinking about homesteading and living in a tiny home, we suggest that you plan ahead for a future where maybe your living is tiny, but you still have a barn or a shed where you can store the things you need to run your homestead. Before you even get to your tiny home, you need to consider if what you're bringing is really important to have, because your storage is going to be limited. In this tiny space for our family, we had a couple shelving units, we had another closet you saw in the living room area. We were fortunate for the homestead farm side of things, we had the storage down below. But if you're going to a brand new property and you're just putting up a little tiny home, you're not going to have a lot of storage. So you need to make sure what you're taking with you is actually important and necessary.
I'm not gonna clap.
Come on.
No, and you have a very wide-legged stance as well. This is not how I stand. We still have stuff in boxes in storage. We're not even quite sure what is in those boxes, and not even sure if we need it anymore. It's probably a lot of stuff we should have just gotten rid of before we moved. Even though homesteading requires a lot of things, all your gear for your animals, their medicine, feed. If I were moving again, this is what I would ask. Have I used this frequently? Does it have multiple functions? And can another item take its function? Just off the top of my head, I think about like maybe your crock pot or slow cooker versus your Instapot. If you have both of those things, the Instapot can do the slow cooking. So in a space like this, maybe it's time to let somebody else take that slow cooker.
Toaster. Talk about the toaster. Why we didn't bring a toaster.
Because we didn't have a toaster.
You're fired. I'll talk about a toaster. We didn't bring a toaster. A toaster does one thing, albeit perfectly. We had a toaster oven, which is kind of not good at making good toast. It makes burnt toast really well.
You're really
we didn't bring a toaster because all it does is do toast, but now looking back, we would have had a lot better toast with a toaster. I don't know. Do what you want.
You've heard me talk about this before. Open shelving is not my favorite. IKEA makes it look really good. I've got 4 kids, and apparently everybody wants what's on the bottom of the pile of clothes, because grabbing that, pulling it off, all the other clothes are on the floor. constantly picking up clothing. If we were living here full time, for years, the solution would have been, as many actually suggested, curtains probably, and some boxes, short boxes where I could fold the clothes, set them in. That way stuff wasn't always falling off the shelves. But because it was not forever, we just kind of made do with it. And I would get really irritated about picking and refolding up so many clothing.
That said, I for one thought the vertical shelving was a fine use of space. Because space is limited, if you were to put a bureau here, it only is storage to here. And then on top is like stuff. This, all the way to the top, good use of space. So maybe do this and then build doors, make it a closet, something. For the studio, we didn't want to do that because I didn't want to put a closet in my studio space. So we're gonna make it different. But anyway, vertical shelves, good use of space.
It's just very hard to make it look neat. So just consider that.
But it's a very good use of space,
Yeah.
so consider that. Now, even though the bathroom was designed really well for a small home and use in a big family, the bathroom is still one of your bigger challenges in a tiny living space. So here's some advice on how 6, 7, 5, whatever your family is, stop having kids. This is how you can deal with a single bathroom for lots of humans.
If you have busy mornings, one of you is going to work, a few of you are going to school, or it's a fancy dress-up day on Sunday, try to do that stuff the day before. So if you can shower, bath, shave, wash your hair evening before, the next morning goes a lot more smoothly. Yes.
Pro tip, having a mustache, the contrast, you can get away with a bit more 5 o'clock shadow. Just one of the many advantages of a mustache.
For all
you mustache haters in the comments, goodness. Enough about the mustache.
I think it looks handsome.
Oh.
As a parent, one thing you learn is you'll be out for a morning getting some shopping done, you maybe stop at a restaurant, and you come home and everybody needs to use the bathroom at exactly the same time, which can be a problem if you only have one. So one thing we actually ended up doing was, before we leave the restaurant, wherever we're eating or if we're at the store, have the kids go there. Then when you come home,
not everybody has to use Instagram at once. Ooh, double tap. Potty reveal. We're just having fun today.
yeah, we're fun.
We're fun. We have fun.
We have fun. We talked before when we were designing the apartment about how I wanted a bathtub. It was a necessity for me.
I thought it was a waste of space.
Who was right? Who was right?
You were right.
I was
so
right. Because not only
is it incredibly luxurious and relaxing,
and I'm so glad as a pregnant woman that I had a bath, but it also helps with the hot water.
You're not going to have a lot of hot water in a tiny home. Probably going to have like electric hot water like we did here.
Yeah.
And that is in finite quantity.
Yeah, so you start at the top of the food chain.
Mommy gets a hot bath first.
And then we trickle down.
Next come the dirty little kids. And depending on their ages, you can throw a whole mess of them in there. Finally, Daddy gets to be the baby thrown out with the bath.
Your drama. He had the second bath.
Did I have the second bath?
Yeah, so it's good.
Some of you right now are like, ew, gross, sharing bathwater. If you want to live in a tiny home, these are the kind of things you're going to have to accept. Like, you're not going to have that much hot water. So stop being grossed out if you want to live in a tiny home.
How did homesteaders do it? They shared bath water.
They did. It's just like a simple life.
Yeah.
And, you know, Mom gets the first bath. The cabin fever is real. When you first move into your tiny home in spring or summer, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love how simple it is, and you're more connected with the outdoors because you're gonna always wanna be outside because it's a tiny space for all your kids and you.
Yeah.
And honestly, if we'd made this video in October, moving out of this space, we would have been like, tiny living is the best. You should totally do it, all of you. But this is March, and we've spent the entire winter in this space with 4 small, energy-filled humans.
Loud human beings.
So loud.
And how do you feel about that?
Yes. Get out.
Get out.
I mean, if you're in a tiny home, plan on getting out of that tiny home. That's the only way we survived cabin fever.
So that means Grandma was right next door. Grandma's got a big basement play space. It was great to be able to say once a week, twice a week, let's go to Grandma's, let's play at Grandma's a little bit. Or if you don't have that, plan to take a trip to the library. They have story time, maybe some toys. Let's go to the library. There will be times that you can't get out though. Sub-zero blizzards, right? We weren't going anywhere.
Yeah, no.
So it is good to mentally prepare for those times. And if that means watching some extra movies during the week, just to get everybody settled down and quiet, then just do it.
If you do have a homestead, it will force you outside twice a day, and that's a good thing. It's good to force yourself out even into the bitter cold. Hobbies help. Hunting season and fishing season go late into the fall and early into spring.
All those things must come to an end.
Oh, the cold, long winter.
And that was hard when those ended.
That was really hard. It was hard, yeah. It was a challenge, and I think if we were going to be doing this long term, it was, yeah.
Challenging.
Yeah, the cabin fever, right?
What's it called?
It was a challenge, cabin fever. Cabin fever was a challenge.
Yeah, it was a challenge. If we were to...
Cabin fever was difficult.
A challenge. Yes.
But, okay. Take 9. Cabin fever was a challenge. These are totally off the cuff. And get the giggles out. Okay, I know what I'm saying. I know what I'm saying. Cabin fever is a real thing. And
like anyone's saying.
This is like a PSA. If you or someone you love is suffering from cabin fever, go outside. That's all you have to do.
That's all you have to do.
If you are going to tiny live in a big family long term, there are some suggestions that we have how you can make long-term tiny living work better for your big family.
Once again, specifically for homesteaders who want to buy property. You found your property and now you got to put some sort of structure up there. What should you do?
HGTV's got it everywhere. You build a little house on a trailer and you wheel it into that property, and then you wheel it to Florida for the winter, and then you wheel it to Jakarta for spring. We don't suggest, if you're planning on being a homesteader in a tiny home, don't put it on wheels.
No, I wouldn't recommend that. Once again, storage space for a homesteader is really important. One way to get that storage space is by having a cellar or a basement under your tiny home. So you build what you can, your little square, your little tiny home.
If it's 1,000, if it's 500.
Whatever you can afford. Excavate that basement, finish that basement. That'll double the room you have, which is really invaluable for a homesteader.
If you're gonna build that, before you build it, you have to design it. Design twice as much, maybe even 3 times as much of a house, and then just build the core, adding on over the years.
Also, think about your outbuildings. It would have been really nice to have an extra bathroom. So if we were on our property, we had our little tiny home with our single bath inside, he would have built an outhouse.
And he would have been the one using the outhouse.
Austin's outhouse.
The gross outhouse.
Austin's outhouse and outdoor shower. How's that?
Wow, this sounds really like I could turn this into
Airbnb.
Airbnb. Austin's outhouse and outdoor shower. Everything you need and nothing
And
you
nothing
don't.
else. Next up, and this is for you beginning homesteaders, a little barn.
Whether that's a shed that you use as a starter barn for your chickens and maybe a goat,
yeah.
and then when you build your real big barn, that becomes a storage shed, whatever it is, you can store a lot outside that doesn't need to be in your tiny home.
Way back when we lived in that little apartment in the city, we were building our homestead, kind of designing it, and we were going the yurt route. And I wouldn't recommend a yurt. They actually take a lot of money, more than you would imagine, unless you're super crafty and you're gonna buy all your own stuff yourself. It's just not how we roll. We cannot do that. So by the time you would invest in the actual yurt, plus getting your plumbing going, and be really realistic, do plan for realistically improving on that as you go along in your homesteading journey.
I think you're kind of letting the cat out of the bag. Our next question we were going to cover.
Would we do this long term?
Would we do this long term?
And by this we mean
live in
a tiny
space. And I think the answer, what you're getting to, is to get started homesteading. Sure, there was a time where we were looking at yurts to put up on 2 acres because we just wanted to start homesteading. And if that's you, awesome. But plan for the future where you're sick and tired of being in 1,000 square feet, and now that you've made it a little further in life, you can expand your home to 2,000 square feet. Because if we didn't have to, we would not choose to live 6 humans in 1,000 square feet. And that's why we moved out of this place.
I'm torn on this. I really enjoyed the size of this.
There were things you liked.
I liked it a lot.
Our last night, you were like, oh, I think I'm gonna miss this little place. Why? What did you like most about it?
You were
this?
like, I won't.
I'm like, I'll see you later. I'm going to the dark house right now.
I loved how easy it was to keep everything clean. I like that. I like our family being so close together most of the time. I like everybody being in our bedroom at night, talking to everybody, reading our stories.
I did like
saying
that.
Goodnight.
Yeah.
There's really nice closeness to it.
You didn't like everything though.
No, of course not.
Yeah. So what was your least favorite?
I am a minimalist at heart. For me, I love clear countertops. I like everything to have a place. I like there to be space. So I like extra shelves and storage. I like to see room everywhere. And we were pretty much maxed out on space here. That led to a lot of visual clutter. And for me, that's very stressful to see visual clutter. That's something I will not miss. In our new house, there's cabinets with doors and dressers with drawers.
No visual clutter.
So I don't see any of that.
And you'll see that soon.
Yeah. And I have a feeling you weren't as sad to leave as I was.
I was not. I was totally ready to go. The thing I didn't like was, this tiny space, and this happens, maybe you can hear it in the audio, it's metal walls. There's like an echo, and I am what you call an audiophile, someone who loves good quality acoustics, listening to a podcast with perfect levels. And so the noise in here drove me nuts. It's a lot of people, and I would come out in the morning and I'd be like, the metal walls, these metal walls. And it actually, to a point where I think I'm more sensitive to sound than I ever have been in my life. My mom can attest to this. I came from a loud Latin household, and there was always music playing, and now when I go back home to visit, the first thing I do is shut the stereo, I unplug it, and my mom's like, I'm gonna do that to you. Honey, what was that about? No, Mom, get the noise off. Was that a good my mom impression?
That was
awful. Sorry, Mom.
He's definitely more sensitive to noise even than I am.
But that was a good Gloria Estefan impression.
It was very good. What will you miss though?
That's the wrong question to ask me. I don't think I will miss
So what was
anything.
one of the benefits to living
here? But I definitely saw a benefit living here. Living in 1,000 square feet, 166 feet per person.
Yeah, for all your stuff, right? Imagine that.
Changed me forever, and not just that I'm cranky around loud kids now. It changed me in that I, for the first time in my life, have become really focused on routine and order and like putting things back in their place. You know, I keep a lot of stuff on me every day. I have a walkie-talkie on me. I have my wallet on me. I have a flashlight on me, a multi-tool on me. I keep this little like EDC kit. I have all kinds of stuff. And if I just like, you know, throw it wherever, it's gonna be in somebody's way. So I learned here every day.
Somebody's way.
To come home, put it in its spot. The first thing I do when I'm done in the shower, clean up the clothes, like I really became more organized, and I also started getting rid of so much stuff. So now I am much more minimalistic and routine structured than I ever have been in my life, and I'm really benefiting from that. So it changed me for good, not for evil.
Most of the kids would say they're also ready to move to a bigger space. They want their own space, and that's something they haven't had. They want a place to build their Legos and not have their little brother destroy it. They want a place to keep all their papers and their art and, you know, not to have to put it on a box somewhere high up on a shelf. So they're really excited about having their own rooms, which they'll be sharing, but it's still sharing it with a third less people.
Yeah, and obviously if you're watching this video and you have older kids, not everything we've done with this space would work with teenagers. And that's one of the reasons it's good that we are now moving on to the bigger house, because sadly we will have teenagers soon.
Yeah, and why we recommend to always plan with that future in mind. Don't invest in a home that you can't expand on, because your kids are gonna grow up and apparently they're not always gonna wanna share a bedroom with you.
Aww.
So I hear.
You have lived big family, tiny quarters, comment below with your best tip. We'd love to see some extra tips, tricks to mastering the tiny living. Because even when you finally go into bigger spaces, what you learn tiny living can help you for the rest of your life. So
yeah, remembering the definition of having enough space for your life, but what was the definition? Having enough room to meet your needs without having wasted space.
Yeah, that can apply to every aspect of your life, and we're gonna keep trying, even moving into the bigger place, to apply that principle to every day. Going to really love our Pinterest board all about tiny living. We pinned a lot of articles over there when we were preparing to build our space, and now we pin all our own articles there when we produce something on tiny living. Click here to follow us on Pinterest, and if you're a heavy pinner, every day consider pinning our daily video to share with your audience. Pin, 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 pin. I'm gonna stop saying pin now because it's starting to sound annoying.